Sample contamination can mean the loss of both precious materials and time. This is why proper technique is important in all steps of sample handling, beginning with time spent in the hood. This is because good technique when working within the Class 2 Biological Safety Cabinet will minimize air turbulence and prevent splatter or unwanted spread of aerosols. Here are some tips for good technique that will maximize potential protection of personnel, sample, and environment. Tip 1. Know your airflow. Biological safety cabinets provide personnel, product, and environmental protection through the use of HEPA-filtered air. Knowing how the air is passed through the cabinet is an essential piece of the puzzle to ensure that good technique is consistently used. Tip 2. Work at the proper Sash level. A certifier measures airspeed at least annually to test for proper airflows and provide a stamp of approval that the cabinet is fully operational to provide personnel, product, and environmental protection. Proper Sash level is necessary to ensure correct airflow during use. Tip 3. Never cover the air grill. Covering the air grill at the front of the cabinet compromises airflow integrity. Blocking the grill can cause laboratory air to enter the work zone, or even work zone air to enter the laboratory environment. Tip 4. Minimize movement. The rapid movement of a worker's arms in a sweeping motion into and out of the cabinet will disrupt the air curtain and may compromise the partial barrier containment provided by the Biological Safety Cabinet. Moving arms in and out slowly and keeping them perpendicular to the opening of the cabinet will reduce this risk. Other personnel activities in the room, such as rapid movement or opening and closing room doors, may also disrupt the cabinet air barrier. Tip 5. Reduce splatter. Many common procedures conducted in biological safety cabinets can create splatter or aerosols. Good microbiological techniques should always be used when working in a biological safety cabinet to minimize this potential. Techniques to reduce splatter and aerosol generation will minimize the potential for personnel exposure to infectious materials manipulated within the cabinet. Class 2 cabinets are designated so that horizontally nebulized spores will be captured by the downward flowing cabinet air within 14 inches of travel. As a general rule of thumb, keeping clean materials at least 12 inches away from aerosol-generating activities will minimize the potential for cross-contamination. Tip 6. Know your work area. The middle third of the work surface is the ideal area to use. All operations should be performed at least 4 inches from the front grille of the work surface. Materials or equipment placed inside the cabinet may cause disruption to the airflow, resulting in turbulence, possible cross-contamination, or breach of containment. Tip 7. Work from clean to contaminated. Active work should flow from the clean to contaminated area across the work surface. Materials and supplies should be placed in such a way as to limit the movement of dirty items over clean ones. Maintain proper balance of materials from left to right in order to prevent an airflow imbalance within the work zone. Bulky items such as biohazard bags, discarded pipette trays, and suction collection flasks should be placed to one side of the interior cabinet. All materials should be placed as far back in the cabinet as practical, toward the rear edge of the work surface and away from the front grille of the cabinet. Similarly, aerosol-generating equipment such as vortex mixers and tabletop centrifuges should be placed toward the rear of the cabinet to take advantage of the air split. Tip 8. Working with tubes. Open tubes or bottles should not be held in a vertical position. Bottle or tube caps should not be placed on the toweling, and items should be covered or recapped as soon as possible. Tip 9. Working with Petri dishes. Investigators working with Petri dishes and tissue culture plates should hold the lid above the open sterile surface to minimize direct impaction of downward air. Tip 10. Working with aspirator bottles or suction flasks. Aspirator bottles or suction flasks should be connected to an overflow collection flask containing appropriate disinfectant and to an inline HEPA or equivalent filter. This combination will provide protection to the central building vacuum system or vacuum pump, as well as to the personnel who service this equipment. Inactivation of aspirated materials can be accomplished by placing sufficient chemical decontamination solution into the flask to kill the microorganisms as they are collected. Once inactivation occurs, liquid materials can be disposed of appropriately as non-infectious waste. Keeping these tips in mind can reduce the potential for contamination and keep you and your samples safe.